The Shadow played him, Han Solo played him, Batman played him, and now Captain Kirk? So could Jack Ryan possibly be the coolest analyst out there? Well, I will say this, even though I enjoyed the previous Jack Ryan films, except for Affleck's, this was arguably the coolest Jack Ryan film. Possibly because it wasn't really a Jack Ryan film. It's ironic that Chris Pine is the new Jack Ryan because seeing him in something other than Star Trek really reminded me what the filmmakers of Star Trek once said. When J.J. Abrams, Robert Orci, and Alex Kurtzman were writing the Star Trek revival, they said that it's missing something. Ultimately, they wanted a little more punch, so they ended up saying that Star Trek needed a little more Star Wars. Seems like Jack Ryan needed a little Jason Bourne. Or James Bond. Which is interesting for a few reasons, because while Bond successfully rebooted its look for the 21st century, Ryan ended up going back to some old staples when it came to the espionage genre. One thing I thought we were past when it comes to spy films is the old phrase, "we can't let it happen again," referring to 9/11. I want to be clear though, I'm not telling people to get over 9/11. What happened in reality was obviously a tragedy. But are we not past that phase cinematically? We went through the German phase, the Russian phase, I thought we got through the Middle Eastern phase, and of course the Canadian phase. Oh, you haven't heard of that one? Oh, well that's just because no one ever suspects the Canadians. But while the Middle East and 9/11 seemed to set up the film, it was the Russians who were back to their old tricks. And some new ones. I actually really liked what the film did with what could have been the same old, same old. It wasn't the typical Cold War film that you've always seen, but it was a cyber Cold War, a financial Cold War, and so it really gave a twist that was appropriate for the 21st century. Really, if you wanted to make the Russians a modern antagonistic force, all you had to do was rewrite the character a little bit. Just make Jack Ryan homosexual and the rest writes itself. This was also a new Jack Ryan, for better or worse, and I don't mean just Chris Pine coming into the role. It was a very different Jack Ryan than we've seen in Clear and Present Danger, Patriot Games, and The Hunt for Red October. That probably has a lot to do with Shadow Recruit being the first Jack Ryan film not based on a Tom Clancy novel. Which would explain what I was saying earlier, why Jack Ryan in this one really isn't Jack Ryan. I applaud the filmmakers for trying, at least, to make the characters and the franchise more modern, but in doing so, they actually make Jack Ryan more generic. When Baldwin, Ford, and hell, even Affleck played the character before, you really got to see what a brilliant analyst that Ryan is. And all that Marine, CIA, secret agent stuff was just secondary. Which is why they were such great political thrillers. This Jack Ryan, while a stronger version of the source material, really concentrates more on the espionage side of things. You see him as a soldier, you see him as a spy, and they really don't show what a great mind he has. They even glaze over the fact that he has a PhD. In fact, they seem to really dumb down most of the film, and that even includes one of the lead actors. I've never really been a fan of Keira Knightley, even in the Pirates films, but in Shadow Recruit, she was especially wooden and unappealing. Luckily, she was the only performance that I really had an issue with. My only other small issue was that Chris Pine's Ryan or Kevin Costner's Harper were versions of spy characters that you've already seen, and so there were really no surprises with them. Although one pleasant surprise was seeing Canadian Colm Feore in a bit part. He and Branagh apparently liked working together on Thor. The most pleasant surprise did come from Kenneth Branagh. I really haven't seen him act in quite some time, but his Victor Sherevin, although once again stereotypical, had enough layers to it that I did enjoy the performance. He was everything that you really wanted in a stereotypical Bond-type Russian villain. He was charming, intelligent, and definitely threatening and intimidating, and so Kenneth Branagh is Jack Ryan's for the win. Plus, it's a bonus that he actually gave the best performance while directing. He's like the anti-M. Night Shyamalan. Lastly, the action within the film is fairly good. There are some very well-constructed tense moments, but of course, being a stereotypical spy thriller, it lessens the tension because you already know how it's going to end. The more I think about it, the more I realize you've seen it all before. You've seen it in other spy movies. You've seen it in more exciting spy movies, and you've definitely seen it in more intelligent spy movies. However, Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit is still barely an earn it. Even after the movie was over, I didn't feel ripped off. There were enough exciting moments, and the plot, even though it's spelled out for you, is fairly solid. Basically, this film was good enough. So it's really up to you whether or not you want to pay for good enough. Poll question, now that there are 5 in the franchise, what is your favorite Jack Ryan film? As always, leave your answers in the comments section below. But until next time, school's out.